welcome to Nonny, Yanga's flagship talk show where we discuss all the hot topics. Today we discuss how to tackle domestic violence against women, and we look at the role education plays in the life of the girl child. Joining me today, CEO and founder of Against All Odds Still Standing, Fikelepi Jackson, and members of her team, Abigail Connier and Florence Caesar. Welcome, ladies. Now, last year, over 1 million cases of domestic violence were reported in England and Wales alone. And according to research, it said that black women are up to 3 times more likely to have experienced domestic abuse than any other race. A survivor herself, Fikelepi Jackson, set up her charity Against All Odds Still Standing, actively seeking to end abuse against black and minority ethnic women. Recognising that so many suffer in silence, she's encouraging victims to speak out. Nice to see you, Fikelepi. 1 in 4 women experience domestic violence in their lifetime. It may seem like a silly question, but why are so many women struggling to get out of these situations?
You will be so surprised that even now, 2018, it's still a big taboo. The stigma attached to it, nobody wants to really talk about this issue. In particular, the black minority, because of culture, because of traditions, because of shame that it brings to the whole community, women are dying in silence.
When you say shame, do you think the shame is towards the woman for picking that partner? Is it shame to the man? What kind of shame is it? Or is that the taboo where we just don't even know?
I would say shame to the community, you know, as families. I just give myself as an example. When things were happening to me, I was an embarrassment to my family because there I was, young as I was, and I was in this situation. If this comes out to this, you know, everyone's daughter, you want your daughter to be happily married, and yeah.
People are scared because of the shame they may inflict on others around them. Abigail, let me speak to you. You're a brand ambassador for Fikelepi's charity Against All Odds. Tell me how you got involved and why.
So I first met her about 7 or 8 years ago at her book launch. And I heard her story and my mouth actually hit the floor. I was very shocked how she could be such a happy person going through all the darkness and pain that she experienced. And I never forgot going to this book launch. I thought about it for a long time. And I recently met her again at my uncle's funeral. She was there and I was like, I remember you. You are so and so.
It's hard to forget.
And she was surprised and I said, I came to your book launch and I heard about your life and what you experienced and I don't understand how you are doing what you are doing. I said, I just want to be a part of what you're doing. So we had a meeting and here I am.
How has it changed your perspective on violence against women? We'll talk about education and the role of young girls later, but abuse specifically.
Well, I know when I was younger, seeing some sort of abuse at home, it sounds weird, but when you're used to it, it seems like the norm. You know, the shouting, the emotional abuse and the tricks that, you know, partners can play on each other, in the mind and how it can affect the kids at home. You think it might be a little bit normal. As you get older, you realise this is not okay, it's not fine. And I think it builds up a construct in your mind that you think is one way. Well, actually, when you meet people who haven't experienced those things or going to school with loads of girls who hadn't experienced those things, I realised, okay, maybe I need to evaluate my family settings, you know, and the people that I'm around, and not to be rude, but I found that a lot of the girls from African, you know, black cultures did see this at home. You know, a lot of the time the man, seen as the head of the home, you know, put a lot of pressure on the ladies and said certain things or did hit them across the line and it seemed to be okay.
Okay and normal, and that's why I suppose so many people are scared to talk out. Florence, nice to see you there. We've spoken about it being a taboo in our community or something that you think when you're growing up is normal, but clearly it's not. Why is that?
I think it's like Fike was saying. It's just the shame. It's the embarrassment, and also when things are not being talked about, when people are not aware of things, they wouldn't know that there is another way. of doing things.
Do you think that's still the case? Of course, the statistics we've spoken about are actually in the UK, and they are incredibly high. But when it comes to taboo and shame, is that still the case for the diaspora, for people that are living here? Some of these women are going to work with their English counterparts. Do they still feel as if they can't speak out?
It's still like that. Myself being, a nurse, working in hospitals when I used to work in hospitals, you find you as a nurse, you are close to the person.
Yeah.
They
build a
share,
bond.
yeah, they share their most intimate, and you're surprised to get to know what people are going through, and they would rather talk to you because they feel you are talking to them confidentially than talking to their colleague.
It's good you mentioned that, Florence. Those relationships are very, very vital. And I suppose, Fikelepi, that's why a charity like yours is, a really good pillar of strength for people in the community, because, of course, for many people, there is no way out. How did you manage to get out?
Well, mine was a miracle. I can tell you that. When I say it was a miracle, my family, when they realized that the depth of that I could possibly die, that's when my mother just thought,
that's just how extreme your situation was.
It was.
Wow, you feared your life.
In fact, my mother did not tell the father of my children that they were taking me away until 3 days before they took me away from the situation. And when they did, they told him that they were taking me away to go to school. And they tried their best not to say we are actually taking her away from you permanently, because even then we didn't know what he could do. Yeah, it was very, when a situation is volatile, it was that bad.
Abigail, why do you think situations like Fikelepi's get so extreme? You spoke about being in school. Do you think that there needs to be more done in schools to be speaking to kids? I know, especially in the Black community, we complain a lot about social services, but sometimes it's not specifically what's going on with the child. It can be stuff that's going on at home that's affecting, how they study and their mood. Do you think we need to tackle this at an earlier age?
100%. I think education is incredibly important and vital. It all starts from there, really. Our journey starts from there. I think educating women about the power that they have, the dignity that they hold, is very important. I think a lot of us, I could speak for myself, and a lot of people from African communities, there is this idea that because we are African, we experience Africa at home. And the things that happen in Africa at home.
We've spoken about that on the show lots of times.
And then we go to school, we're in the UK. So for me growing up, it was difficult because,
the contrast.
You stepped out of line, you got a little slap and it was all right. You go to school and you hear, that's not okay,
not funny, but
Yeah, and sometimes that crosses the border and it can be abuse, but you don't identify it because you're not taught at home that's abuse. Wow. So I think teaching people in school from young is very vital.
Florence, how have you spoke about speaking to some of your patients in hospitals. That counsel, does it really encourage them and help them, or do you kind of fear that they're going to go back home, back to the same situation?
The hope is always that, if it's a short period, like at the moment, I'm not working in a hospital anymore, but I speak to people on the phone, I do a bit of counseling. So you always hope that that person, while you talk to them, if you identify what the issue is and you signpost that person, and if there's an opportunity for a follow-up, obviously then you can, but if you don't have a follow-up, you just hope that you've signposted them to the correct people and you refer them to the correct people.
And that's really important, especially in London. Sometimes you're so busy, you don't want to get into people's businesses, but sometimes you have to. And they need people like you and Abigail and Fikelepi. Fikelepi, before we go to the break, tell us about your charity and how it's, managed to help women. I know there's a lot. Let's talk about the women who have been abused.
Yeah, so let's just probably outline what what we stand for.
Yeah.
Against all odds still standing, we stand to rebuild lives, to restore hope, and to restore dignity. And we do that through education, as we've been saying, education, social development, and health. Our realization is that when women, myself as a survivor, when I came out of my traumas, I was very, very depressed. And you feel empty. You're just an object.
Even
You
after
just
you've left.
Absolutely. The nightmares continue. So we seek to actually rebrand the inside, to actually say, look, you matter.
Wow.
You are enough.
Rebranding the inside.
Yes. So we, here in the UK, we aim to work with ethnic minority women who are suffering in silence, as I said, because of traditions or cultures. Or
Sometimes finance as well.
Yeah.
Finance plays a huge part.
Yeah, so we work with other service providers, we work with victim support and so on and so forth. And we're pleased to say in the UK we are funded by the big lottery fund. They look after this side. But in Africa, so in Malawi, Zambia and Zimbabwe, in Zimbabwe we are concentrating on young girls who are being forced into prostitution.
So we're going to talk about this. We need a whole show of you, don't we? Because you are doing so much and we need you. The community needs you. Still to come, we look at the role education plays in empowering young women. See you after the break. Welcome back to Noni. Education should be a universal right to all. Yes, in many parts of the world, girls are the first to be excluded from it. Millions of girls are still being denied an education and instead face the perils of early marriage, early pregnancy, and sexual promiscuity. Africa has the highest rates of educational exclusion in the world. 9 million girls aged between 6 to 11 will never go to school. Recognising poverty as the greatest barrier to access an education, many charities and organisations are working towards making education available to all. How critical is the role of education in empowering young women? Gosh, those statistics, Fikelepi.
Shocking.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
Why? Why? Giving a girl the opportunity to choose her own life, because that's what education does, really. You know, you go to school, you get out of school, you decide whether you want to go to college, whether you want to marry your long-term boyfriend. That choice. Why? Why are so many, and I want to talk about Africa because that's where the statistics are worse. Why are we denying our young girls?
Do you know what? From the time girl child is born, she is in trouble. As she approaches puberty, this is starting to come on. The chiefs and the people in the village are watching. The family. She's already been earmarked. People are already doing deals and transacting. You know, she will marry so and so. It's very heartbreaking. I mean, I'll give you an example with Malawi. In Malawi, out of 6 children, only 1 girl will make it through secondary education in comparison to the boys. So we are talking about the girls in the villages, in the mountains that have no voice, absolutely no voice. And as an organization, against all odds, as I said earlier before the break, ours is really education. So we are going down in the
I've
mountains.
seen you. You're everywhere. You
Yeah,
are everywhere.
we are
all
trying.
across the continent.
We are trying. As we speak now, we have Chief Kachinda Moto. This great woman is an icon. She has dismantled over 2,000 unlawful marriages, as they ought to be. But these students, these children, are now schooling under a tree.
Wow.
We are currently building a school in Malawi because we believe that Africa needs education. Mommy needs to be educated. The chiefs need to be educated. We need to do this with love, without condemning, because one of the things that you can't do in Africa is to come in and say your culture is wrong or your traditions are wrong. You just kind of sit
It's
down
gentle.
with
It's
them.
planting those seeds, isn't it? And organisations and charities,
love.
they need to go there with love.
Yeah.
Abigail, if you don't educate a child, a female child, just as Fikelepi says, it spreads out. It's not just the girl that it affects her entire community. It then
right.
affects the next generation.
Yeah.
And also as well, when we talk about education, we're not just talking about being in school. You mentioned the school underneath the tree. It's the people around you. It is the
Yeah.
chieftains. It is the villages. They say it takes a whole village to raise
To
a
raise a
child.
child,
So
yes,
it's not.
yeah.
It has such a big effect, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does. It does. In sociology, there's something called the poverty trap, and it starts off with education. If the adult in the home is not educated, that filters down to the children. When they have children, that filters down to them. And if that cycle is not broken with education and moving up the social ladder, it happens again and again and again. And it's easier for that poverty trap to keep continuing in places like Malawi, unfortunately. And I think the work that Against All Odds is doing is incredible. We're going to be building a secondary school there, and education is very key. Letting these girls know that you do have a choice to be an engineer, to be a pilot. And if you want to go on to teach other ladies how to come out of poverty, not even just financially, but in the mind. I think a lot to
Yes,
do.
of
Poverty is
course.
all
Yeah, of
about the
course.
mind. You could give them so much money and they would end up in the same place again because they're not educated what to do with it, and they don't know the skills that they have inside of them. There's so much they can do with their hands. There's so much they can do with their brains. So education
Their life is
key, yeah.
disputed, isn't
Yeah.
it? Florence, it's such an incredible thing that Against All Odds are doing. But when we talk about education, it's not just sex, is it? We talk about the fact that, she starts growing all her female parts and the men in the village are all getting excited. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it is poverty. Sometimes
Yeah.
they just cannot afford for that girl to go to school. She's got to go to the village, hasn't she?
Yeah.
So it's difficult to just kind of put it in the category of child marriage, which we know is happening all over the continent, but then also it is to do with just access to funds and relying on that girl, that daughter, to help her mother.
Yeah. So, I mean, not only just in the villages or the rural areas, even in, urban
Cities,
areas,
yeah.
and especially in the cities. So, the girl is being seen as a means to an end, basically.
Are girls still seen as the second-class citizens to boys?
Unfortunately,
Yeah, well,
I think
in our journeys, like we're taking Abigail just next week. We're flying to Malawi
Wow.
to meet the girls. You will be surprised. Even their posture, how they walk, their head is down. It's like I don't have a voice, but through Against All Odds, if you go on our YouTube channel, by the way, subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll find there's one of our students. When I first met her, she couldn't say a word in English, but last year this child did a beautiful poem about girl child. She's saying, when Against All Odds found me, I was nothing. I didn't know my name. I didn't even know I had
Against
it
all
in me.
odds,
And against
now
all odds,
I'm
now
talking.
I have hope.
It's
I'm
good.
going somewhere. So education.
Education.
is key. Yeah.
It is key. Do you think, Abigail, the governments need to be involved?
they need to be doing more. You know what I mean? I mean, the way the countries are heading, education, it literally starts it off. A lot of the countries that are successful today is because of the education of its citizens.
Yeah.
The jobs that they have, the places they can go, the things that can do, the skills they can offer. It all starts with education.
Yeah.
And the government has to take more responsibility. If not, why are you with the government? Do you know what I mean? They have to use the money and the resources that they have to better the people of the society.
Well, in the charity world, how much help do you get from, UN, UNICEF? Are they really, because, a lot of people kind of roll their eyes at the UN now, kind of, good for nothing, have the best intentions in the world, but, you spend more money on your fabulous lunches and the accommodation than you actually do on the ground. Do you also think there needs to be more assistance from them?
Absolutely. I think when you talk about other big, without pointing fingers,
Yes.
there's a lot of talking, but not doing. For us as a young organization, we believe in doing. We believe that people have spoken a lot. People have prayed a lot. People talk about it, but nobody wants to pack those bags and go and do what is necessary to do. That said, I want to just single out the government of Malawi. We were very surprised. I think 2 months ago, they invited us to the Malawi High Commission and actually acknowledged that the work that we're doing, because when we first went there, we told the government we'll just take one girl at a time, one woman at a time. So over the past 7 years, they've seen us just grow
And
you
grow.
know, yeah,
Can
and
I just
they've
ask-
offered their support. So I'm
Good.
looking
And
forward
which is why you're going
to
next
sitting
week,
down.
right?
Yes,
No,
yeah.
that's good.
Yeah,
What
go
is it
on.
about the girl child? Because even if you're not African, black like us, you know, everybody's hearing about it now. Like, yes, the girl child, the girl child, the girl child. Do you think within the next 10 years, 20 years, there can be a positive change across the continent?
Absolutely.
Even if we
Just
go at
think-
this pace, or we need to
Oh,
step
no,
up
no,
the
no,
ante?
we need to step up. No, we need to step up. Anybody who's tuned in, please just do something. If not with Against All Odds, UNICEF, or anybody who's doing something to rescue girl child. Because really, without us, there is no future, is there? We are the ones who carry the future presidents, the future scientists. Do you understand? So we are needed. We are important.
Fikelepi, it's always lovely having you here, and we will continue to follow your journey and can't wait to hear about all the great things you guys do in Malawi. That's it from me, Juliana Olayinka, and my wonderful guests today, Fikelepi Jackson, Abigail Konya, and Florence Caesar. Don't forget, guys, Noni's now online wherever you are in the world. Go to www.yangatv.com to check out every single episode. Join me next time for more Noni Chat. Goodbye.